She kicked my son's disabled dog, then tried to blame him for it. She laughed when he cried. She locked him up, forged evidence, and threatened to strip me of custody. That's when I stopped being a neighbor and became her reckoning. I didn't file a complaint. I didn't beg for justice. I broke her guard dog. I dragged him bleeding to her feet. And then I made her watch her entire empire collapse. Rule by fake rule, lie by polished lie. Stay until the end, because some monsters don't hide under beds. They sit on HOA boards and wear name tags that say president. I still remember the sound her heels made. Click, 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 like gunshots across the stone path of the HOA park. My son, barefoot in the grass, was crouched beside Lucky, our corgi with a twisted back leg, gently brushing the dust from his fur. It was nothing, a small tumble on the grass. But to Karen Whitmore, queen of the neighborhood, it might as well have been a felony. "Hey!" Her voice sliced through the air, sharp as broken glass. "What is that thing doing here?" I turned in time to see her approaching like a storm in designer sunglasses. Behind her was Brent, built like a fridge, wearing HOA security black, arms crossed like a bouncer at a cheap nightclub. "My son's dog," I said, trying to stay calm. "We're just—" She cut me off, eyes locked on Lucky like he was filth. "That mutt has a limp. Is it sick? Diseased?" She took a step back like she'd just seen roadkill. "Do you realize how many HOA health codes you're violating by dragging that thing around public grass?" My son shrank behind me, clutching Lucky. The dog whimpered, still trying to wag his tail. "Ma'am, he's not dangerous," I said. "He's disabled, not sick. He's registered. We have every—" Karen raised a hand. "Spare me. I don't want your pity parade on my lawn." She turned to Brent. "Make a note. This one's going on the citation list. Again." Brent smirked, already tapping on a tablet. My fists clenched, but I said nothing. Not yet. Karen leaned in, low and venomous. "This is a high-standard neighborhood. Maybe you're used to letting crippled animals roll through garbage, but here we have rules. Maybe your kind doesn't belong." That was when my son looked up at me, his lip trembling, not understanding why someone would hate a dog just for limping. I met Karen's eyes, memorized her face, and said nothing. But in that silence, I began planning the day I'd make her eat every single word. 2 days later, it happened. I was running late from work. My son begged me to let him take Lucky for a quick walk to the same HOA park. It was close. Safe. Or so I thought. He promised to stay on the trail, not even near the lawn where Karen had hissed at us. I said yes. That was my mistake. At 5:32 p.m., the sun was low, casting long shadows over the brick path. My son, 7 years old, small for his age, was kneeling by a flower bed, brushing dirt off Lucky's belly. The little corgi had stumbled again, but he was wagging his tail, as always, determined to enjoy every breath of sunlight. And that's when Brent came. No warning, no courtesy, just a stomp of boots, a shadow. "What did I tell you about this mutt?" Brent growled, towering over them. His voice was a low snarl, already clenching fists like the dog had personally offended him. My son looked up. "We're not on the lawn, sir. Lucky's okay. He didn't—" Brent didn't wait. He didn't care. He stepped back, drew his boot up, and kicked Lucky in the ribs, hard and brutal. The sound was sickening. A thud, a yelp, a sharp crack, then silence. Lucky flew sideways, hit the base of the stone planter, and lay still. My son screamed. But Karen, she was standing behind Brent, calm, unbothered, arms folded, watching. She didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She smiled. "I warned you," she said, cold and detached. "You think we're playing games out here?" My son ran to Lucky, sobbing, trying to lift him. "He's not moving. He's—" Brent stepped forward like he was going to do it again. My son curled over Lucky's tiny body. "Enough," Karen said. "Take the boy. Detain him. We'll get this written up as an animal control violation." "Under what charge?" my son sobbed. He didn't do anything. Karen crouched down next to him, not to help, not to comfort, but to stare him in the eyes. Sweetheart, she cooed. Your dog's unlicensed, unapproved, and according to HOA Rule 14C, any unregistered or threatening pet is to be removed. He bared his teeth. That's what I'll write. He didn't bear... She cut him off. No one's going to believe a scared little boy crying over a half-dead mutt. Then she stood up and snapped her fingers. Brent pulled my son away from Lucky and marched him to the HOA building. The boy fought, screaming his dog's name. Neighbors saw. Some turned away, some filmed. None intervened. By the time I got the call, your son is at the HOA office. There was an incident with a dog. I already knew. I didn't ask for details. I didn't cry. I just walked into the kitchen, opened the bottom drawer of my desk, and pulled out a battered black case I hadn't touched in years. Inside was a tactical wrist camera, a pair of reinforced gloves, a tiny USB key labeled Protocol Ashfall. I looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't just a father. I was the wrong person to test with cruelty. And Karen Whitmore had just signed her own sentence. If that scene made your blood boil like it did mine, hit 1 in the comments. Let's make sure Karen hears us. I didn't drive to the HOA building. I stormed in on foot. They handed my son over like he was a misplaced package. No apology, no explanation. His eyes were red. His hands were still shaking. I saw the bruise on his wrist where Brent had gripped too hard. I asked nothing. I didn't need the story. His tear-stained shirt told it all. Where's Lucky? I asked, voice like ice cracking. They left him there, my son whispered. He wasn't moving. I didn't flinch. I just knelt, kissed his head, and whispered, Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone but me. I grabbed my keys, drove back to the park, and found Lucky barely breathing, body limp, ribs heaving with every failing breath. His fur was stained with red. I scooped him up and bolted to the emergency vet. 2 broken ribs. Internal bleeding. They didn't know if he'd make it through the night. I sat in that cold, antiseptic lobby and stared at the wall until dawn. But I didn't pray. I didn't cry. I planned. Karen Whitmore thought she ran this neighborhood, thought HOA laws were stronger than blood. She used Brent like a weapon, used rules like blades. And now she was laughing, probably sipping coffee, bragging about putting a child in his place. No, not this time. When the vet finally said Lucky would pull through, I nodded once and walked out without a word. Back home, I opened the locked chest in my garage, the one with the thick steel latches and a fingerprint lock. Inside, 1 tactical wrist cam, 2 reinforced gloves, 3 encrypted drives from my time in covert ops, and a plan I once named Protocol Ashfall, meant for hostile infiltrations, never used, until now. I slipped the gloves on, looked in the mirror. I saw the man I used to be. Then I said it aloud, teeth clenched. You hurt my son. You almost killed his dog. You mocked us like you were untouchable. Karen, I'm coming. And I don't bring warnings. I bring endings. The HOA office sat like a smug little fortress in the center of the neighborhood. Glass walls, keypad locks, security cameras watching every corner. They thought it made them untouchable. They'd never dealt with me. At 2:14 a.m., I approached from the east fence, crawling beneath the blind spot I'd memorized years ago. HOA security logs reset at 3 o'clock. I had 45 minutes. Plenty. I slipped through the utility entrance, Brent's private smoke break door. He never reset the access code. Idiot. Inside, it reeked of fresh paint, power, and Karen's perfume. Sour and synthetic, like her. I moved fast. A pin-sized mic under the main conference table. 1 in the faux ficus tree behind Karen's chair. A 3rd, buried behind the thermostat, catching every whisper. Then I found it. The war room. HOA incident reports lined the wall. Photos, names, red-marked complaints. My son's face was on it. Taped, circled in ink, labeled, habitual disruption, pet hazard, likely lying. My fists clenched, but I didn't touch it. I just filmed every page, every word, every sick smile Karen had doodled in the margins. I was halfway out when I heard the click of heels. Karen. She walked in with Brent, laughing. He cried like a baby. I told you, Brent, just one good scare, and they crawl. Still think we should have filed assault charges. Frame the dog, too, Brent muttered. Karen scoffed. Please, I'll have the vet rewrite the report. Easy. People believe paperwork, not tears. And if Daddy complains, well, maybe we start questioning his custody fitness. You'd be surprised how easy it is to twist the law. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I recorded everything. Brent chuckled. You're cold, Karen. No, darling, she purred. I'm effective. I slipped out the way I came in, silent, invisible. Back in my garage, I uploaded the footage to 3 cloud backups, encrypted them, and labeled the folder. Karen, Day 1, Exposure Protocol. I stared at the screen. You wanted a war, Karen. You kicked a dog. You framed a child. I just planted the bomb beneath your throne, and I'm counting down. The HOA meeting was already in full swing when I arrived. Polished shoes, polished lies. Karen stood at the front like a queen giving orders to her obedient little kingdom. Brent stood by the door, arms folded, jaw flexing with false authority. I parked 3 blocks away and walked in under the cover of the trees. Hoodie up, gloves tight. My heartbeat was steady. Tonight, I wasn't here to argue. I was here to break something. Brent didn't recognize me at first. Not until I stepped out of the shadows and walked straight up to the HOA building's side entrance, his private post. He took 1 step forward. Meeting's closed, pal. Residents can submit. I didn't let him finish. My fist crushed his sentence mid-syllable. Crack. My knuckles slammed into his jaw like a hammer. He stumbled back, blood spitting from his lips, trying to draw breath, but I wasn't done. I grabbed the back of his neck and drove his face into the brick wall. Once. Twice. That's for lucky, I growled into his ear. And this? I slammed my knee into his ribs. Is for putting your hands on my son. He crumpled, groaning. I caught him before he hit the ground. I wanted Karen to see what happens when her dog gets put down. I dragged Brent's limp body by the collar through the HOA's front doors. The room went silent. Karen froze mid-sentence, one manicured hand mid-air like she was blessing the crowd. Her lips parted in horror as I threw Brent's bleeding carcass across the table, scattering paper agendas like dead leaves in a storm. He landed face first on her notes. Blood smeared Rule 14C. Gasps echoed. Phones came out. I could feel the whispers rippling through the room. Karen tried to gather herself. You've just committed assault. Do you know what you've done? You'll regret this. I'll bury you in lawsuits. I stepped forward, calm but crackling with fire. You think this is assault? I said. No, Karen. This is a receipt. For everything he did to my dog. To my kid. Under your orders. She scoffed, hiding her fear with venom. Get out, now, before I call the police. I pulled out a small remote and tapped a button. The main TV screen on the wall lit up. Her voice filled the room. Just one good scare, and they crawl. I'll have the vet rewrite the report. Maybe we start questioning his custody fitness. Her smile vanished. The room erupted in murmurs. That's her voice. Did she really say that? She threatened a child. Karen lunged forward, hands shaking. That's illegally obtained. It's the truth, I snapped. And the truth doesn't need permission. She glared at me. Her power was slipping. Her people were watching. You want war, I said, loud enough for the entire room. You kicked a dog and called it justice. You detained a child and called it leadership. You unleashed a thug and called it order. I stepped closer, inches from her trembling face. I call it tyranny. And I just burned your little empire to the ground. If you were standing in that room, would you have stopped me? or stood back and watched it all burn? Tell me in the comments. Karen's eyes darted across the room like a cornered predator. The HOA board was no longer nodding. They were staring, some horrified, some furious, all quiet. The screen still glowed behind me, replaying her voice like a death bell. People believe paperwork, not tears. Maybe we start questioning his custody fitness. She lunged for the remote in my hand. I sidestepped. "Don't touch me!" she snapped, venom returning. "Afraid of your own voice?" I shot back. Brent moaned at her feet, still bleeding, barely conscious. Karen stepped over him like discarded trash. "None of this proves anything," she shouted. "These are edited clips, taken out of context. He's a dangerous man. He broke in here, assaulted." "No." I slammed a thick folder onto the table. Inside, screenshots of her emails to the vet. The real medical report showing Lucky's injuries. HOA incident logs she doctored, falsifying claims about my son. "You didn't just lie," I growled. "You fabricated. You manipulated. You abused a child, covered for an assault, and buried a dog beneath red tape. You used your power like a weapon." She reached for the folder, but I snapped it shut. "Not yours anymore." Mrs. Langston, HOA treasurer, elderly but sharp, stood up slowly. "Karen, is this true?" "Don't you dare question me," Karen hissed, eyes wide. "After everything I've done for this community, I kept order, I enforced standards, You bullied families," someone muttered from the crowd. "You destroyed that girl's lemonade stand," another resident added. A third voice. "You made my wife cry. Twice." The dam cracked. One by one, residents stood. People Karen had silenced for years. Now they spoke. Karen's voice shrank. Her eyes darted. Her tongue stuttered. "This is a setup. This man is violent, dangerous. He attacked Brent." "He protected his son," Langston replied. "You created this. You let it fester." I took a step closer. "You tried to bury the truth beneath HOA bylaws. You weaponized power, then hid behind paperwork. But here's the thing, Karen." I leaned in, my voice low but sharp. "Your rules don't work when everyone's watching. And they're watching now." She reached for her phone, probably to call legal, or maybe spin control. I grabbed it and held it high. "Call whoever you want. Send the lawyers. File the complaints. But first, explain this." I played one last recording. "I warned you. Don't bring trash animals into my neighborhood." A collective gasp filled the room. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it, like the world owed her cruelty. I dropped the phone on the table. "You didn't just break rules, Karen. You broke people. And you laughed while doing it." For the first time, Karen didn't speak. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Outside, sirens wailed. I turned to the window and smiled. "They're not coming for me. They're coming for you." The sirens grew louder. Karen stepped back like the sound itself burned her skin. She wasn't wearing her HOA badge anymore. She wasn't barking orders. She looked small now, just a woman with too many secrets and no place left to hide. But I wasn't finished. I reached into my coat and pulled out a laminated print of Rule 14C, the one Karen had twisted to justify hurting my son and his dog. I slapped it flat on the table. "This is the rule you used to control us. You waved it like a sword. You carved your cruelty into every line. And now, I'm rewriting it." I took a red marker from my pocket. Slowly, deliberately, I crossed out the text in front of the board and every stunned resident. Then I wrote, "Any act of abuse, falsification, or targeted harassment will result in immediate removal from leadership and full legal review." Karen lunged forward. "You don't get to rewrite HOA policy." "No," I said coldly. "We do." Langston stepped beside me. Then 2 more board members. Then a dozen residents. We all stared at her like she was already history. "You ran this place with fear," I said. "You used silence like a shield. But fear only works when people think no one will stand up." I turned and pointed to Brent, still groaning on the ground. "Your enforcer is done. Your lies are exposed. And your crown? I picked up the HOA meeting gavel Karen always slammed for attention and snapped it clean in two. Is broken. Karen backed toward the door. Her voice cracked now. You'll regret this. I know people. Real people. You'll pay for this. So will you, I said, eyes locked on hers. But the difference is, your bill is already due. 2 sheriff's deputies entered. Karen turned, ready to scream, but they didn't listen. One stepped forward, calm but firm. Karen Whitmore, you're under arrest for falsification of records, coercion, and obstruction of justice. Please place your hands where we can see them. She gasped. You can't arrest me. I'm the president of… No, I cut in. You were. The cuffs clicked tight. The room stayed silent. Karen didn't look at anyone as they let her out. But I never looked away. The next morning, the HOA office was sealed off with yellow tape. Karen's SUV was still parked crooked outside. Driver's door open. One heel lying on the curb like it had been kicked off in panic. The badge she'd worn like a crown sat shattered near the trash bins, cracked straight through the middle. I stood at the edge of the parking lot, hands in my pockets, watching deputies wheel out boxes of files, labeled, sealed, logged as evidence, years of quiet terror stuffed into cardboard. Brent was already in custody, booked for assault, battery of a minor, and animal cruelty. He wasn't smirking anymore. Karen, they said, had spent the night ranting in her holding cell, threatening lawsuits, sobbing, demanding a phone call to the mayor. No one cared. She kept saying, I built that neighborhood, one deputy muttered to me. I told her, then you should have built it on something stronger than fear. I didn't smile, I just nodded. But the real shift came at dusk. The board held an emergency meeting on the community lawn. Public, open mic. Langston led it. Her voice trembled at first, but she stood tall. We were blind. We let power become punishment. And for that, we owe every family here an apology. Applause rippled through the crowd. Then came the testimonies. One man spoke of how Karen fined his wife for hanging a wind chime. A woman described being shamed for her daughter's wheelchair ramp. Another admitted she had once lied on Karen's behalf because she was afraid of what would happen if she didn't. People cried, people confessed. And for the first time in years, no one looked over their shoulder while doing it. I stepped forward only once. Karen used rules like shackles. Brent used strength like a weapon. But this community? You let it happen, not because you're cruel, but because fear trains people to forget what they deserve. I held up the broken HOA gavel. This is what ruled you. I suggest you never let anything like it rule you again. Langston took it from me, silent. She placed it on a small table beside a new motion document. Motion. Disband HOA. Rebuild from the ground up. Community-led. Volunteer-based. Transparent. The vote passed, unanimously. Karen's reign was dead, but my mission wasn't finished. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was silent as the judge leaned forward. Karen sat in the defendant's chair, wrists bare but spirit broken. Her expensive suit looked stiff, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. No more sunglasses, no clipboard, just fear, hollow and quiet. For the charges of falsifying medical documents, coercing a public official, and obstruction of justice, the judge said, this court finds the defendant, Karen Whitmore, guilty on all counts. The gavel came down like thunder. Her mouth dropped open. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just froze. Her lawyer patted her shoulder. She flinched. Brent wasn't in the room. He had already taken a plea deal. 18 months in county jail. His mugshot had made the local paper. Split lip, swollen cheek, eyes finally void of arrogance. I walked outside into the autumn air. The courthouse doors swung closed behind me like the seal on a tomb. It was over. But it didn't feel clean. Lucky still limped. My son still woke up from nightmares whispering, is Karen still watching us? I couldn't fix that. Not with fists. Not with files. Not even with justice. But I could show him that monsters fall. that we fight back, that silence doesn't win. A week later, the HOA sign was torn down. A new one was put up at the entrance of the park where it all began. It wasn't big, just a simple steel plate, mounted waist-high by the flower bed. Engraved into it, "In memory of Lucky." He never bit, he never barked, but he reminded us what cruelty looks like, and what courage sounds like. No child or creature shall be shamed for existing. Voted by the people, not the powerful. My son stood next to it, holding Lucky on his leash. The corgi wagged his tail slowly, one hind leg trembling with every step. But he stood. He always stood. I knelt beside them both. "You see this?" I said softly. "She tried to take away your voice. She tried to erase this dog. She failed, because you kept loving, and I kept fighting." He looked up at me, eyes no longer afraid. "Is it really over?" I paused, then nodded. "For her? Yes. For us? We rebuild." Behind us, the community gathered, smiling, nodding, some even crying. No HOA, no fear, just neighbors, people, and one father, one son, one dog, who refused to bow. In the end, it wasn't about Karen. It wasn't even about HOA rules, forged documents, or the bruised body of her thug lying broken on that boardroom floor. It was about something deeper. It was about what we allow, and what we refuse to tolerate. For years, people lived under her control, not because they were weak, but because fear is quiet. It creeps in slowly, until silence becomes survival, and injustice hides behind procedure. But the moment someone stands up, not just with fists, but with truth, something shifts. People remember who they are. They remember that power only works when we give it permission. Karen tried to weaponize rules to destroy what was gentle. My son's dog, my son's joy, and the peace we built together after so much loss. She thought she could erase it with a signature. She thought she could control it with a title. But dogs remember kindness, and children remember terror. And fathers? We remember everything. This story isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. It's about looking power in the face and saying, "Not today, not my family, not my community." But more importantly, it's a reminder for all of us. Stand up when you see someone bullied. Speak out when rules are used to hurt instead of protect. Don't let silence become the price of peace, because sometimes the loudest form of justice is simply refusing to back down. And that's what I did. Not just for Lucky, not just for my son, but for everyone who was too tired, too scared, or too alone to fight back before. Now the community is rebuilding, together. The grass is still green, the children still laugh. And Lucky? He limps, but he walks forward, tail high. Because we all do. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever seen someone abuse power like Karen did? Did you speak up, or did you wish someone else would? Drop your story or your thoughts in the comments below. Let's make this a place where the silent find their voice. If this story hit you in the heart, smash that like button. Subscribe for more stories that hit back harder than the bullies ever could. And ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. Because around here, we don't just tell stories, we take down tyrants, one truth at a time.